was 1976. The place, North Chicago, Illinois, home of the Great Lakes Naval Base. It was there and then that I developed my personal relationship with superheroes. I was about 10 years old when I became a devoted fan of the television show Wonder Woman. Now, before I get too deep into my story, I just got to acknowledge that I know, as a grown-ass, educated, old black woman, that I'm supposed to resent and resist the imposition of white female Hollywood patriarchy. But you gotta understand, at the time, I just thought that Wonder Woman, is portrayed by that busty brunette, Linda Carter, with that teeny tiny Barbie doll waist and those legs that went on for days. Well, I just thought she was wonderful. And I think one of the reasons I was so taken with her is because she was so different than the way I saw myself at the time. You see, she was a courageous, strong warrior, raised among a tribe of warrior women, and the only reason she left home was so that she'd go out and fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And I guess I just saw myself as this average middle child, and I wasn't particularly strong or courageous. In fact, I was sandwiched between my younger brother, who happened to be the only boy, and my older sister, who made it her business to make me sorry I was ever born. Now, I know you think I'm exaggerating, but I shared a room with her. And there were times when I would wake up in the middle of the night and she'd be perched on the edge of my bed, like that monkey from the Planet of the Apes who was sitting on the dresser. And if she wasn't just sitting there staring at me, she'd be shaking me violently awake, telling me to roll over because I was smacking or snoring in my sleep or something. And so my childhood went on like that for many years, pretty much until I got into high school. And she had grown up and moved out of the house, and I had started high school, and she had left this legacy. She had been just all over the place, so I was kind of expected to live up to her legacy. So I joined a volleyball, and I joined the drama team the first year and freshman year, but in my sophomore year, I joined NJROTC. Now, as I said before, this was a Navy town, and both of my parents had been in the Navy, and most of the kids I went to school with were Navy brats. So I joined NJROTC, and I took to it like a fish takes to water. I loved marching in formation and singing cadence. I loved, the drill team, and I loved competing against cute boys in uniform for best marksman. It was great. And it was in ROTC that I met one of my best friends, and I'm going to call her Betty Brown to protect her identity. Betty and I just got along so great. She was on drill team. She started coming to my church. We were hanging out after school, talking on the phone, doing sleepovers. Everything was going great. Until one day, Betty showed up on my doorstep. And as soon as I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. Her clothes were torn. She had scratch marks on her face and she was bleeding. And I found out as I was helping her clean up that it was actually her mother and brother who had done this to her. Apparently, Betty's brother, like my sister, had always been a bully. And one day he had been harassing her, and he finally left her alone, and she had just gotten so sick and tired of it that she called the police and told them he was dealing drugs out of the house. Well, the police showed up, they searched the house, found the drugs, and they arrested her brother. When her mom came home, she found out what happened, and she jumped on Betty. So as soon as Mom left home to go bail her brother out, Betty ran out of the house and trekked halfway across town back to my house. When I heard this story, I heard my inner Wonder Woman come alive that day. And something told me that this injustice could not stand. We had to do something. So I got on the phone, I called another one of our friends from ROTC, and we made a plan. We trekked back to Betty's house as fast as we could, loaded up as much of her stuff as we could into a pile of black garbage bags. And I want you to take a minute to think about it. 3 black girls dragging 3 black garbage bags across town. Now, I don't know why nobody stopped us. Because you know good and well, if we would have tried that today, the police would have been surrounding us. But anyway, I won't talk about that. So we made it back to my house, and by the time my mom came home, we were kind of calmed down. We told her what happened, and she agreed to let Betty stay with us as long as we called her mom and told her where she was. And so she stayed with us, not just for a few days, but what ended up being almost a couple weeks. And when she finally went back home, things kind of got back to normal. She started coming back to school, hanging out at church, talking on the phone, sleepovers, until one day, Betty stopped coming to school. And so I called her several times, And I tried to ask around to see if anybody knew where she was. And before I know it, I just stopped calling because I never heard anything. Well, I found out later on that Betty had been taken from her family's home and put in foster care. And I remember thinking at the time that that just didn't seem fair. She hadn't committed any crimes, and she had only done the right thing. But I now understand, now that I'm a therapist, the importance of reporting abuse to protect those who can't protect themselves. And so I guess you're wondering now, what is my relationship to superheroes? Well, now I work as a therapist with children all the time. And I use the origin stories of superheroes to talk to them about the trauma that they've been through. And I work with a lot of babies every day, lots of kids. I tell them about Peter Parker, who as a kid was abused, and he was abused by other kids and bullied. And he grew up to be our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I tell them about Batman. Of course, we all know that's Bruce Wayne, who saw his parents gunned down in the alley right in front of him. And of course, I tell them about Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, who left home so she could help those who help themselves. And every once in a while, I tell them about the time I became Wonder Woman and tried to save a friend. Thank you.
Yeah.